So I spend a lot of time with my neighborhood kids and doing what some might think is strange, like talking to birds or talking to animals. And lately, the new kids that I spent a lot of time with thought I was strange because before I pet their dog, I ask permission. I'm like, oh, can I pet you? Or, oh, can I wipe your eye boogers? And she's such a lovey dog. She's like all about it, right? And they're like, why do you ask permission? And I'm like, you should ask permission to be in anybody's space, right? Everybody's entitled to their personal space, and nobody should be touched, whether it's animal or person or insect, without permission, right? So also, too, I love to talk to the birds, and they talk back. And so the kids are like fascinated by this. And they're like, how do you know what the birds are saying? And I'm like, well, because if you speak with love, anybody and anything will understand and speak back to you. So I made a lot of posts about dragons and demons and all these entities, and I feel like I should tell you too, how do you beat them? Love. Love for yourself is really important. Love for God is even more important. And like they say, faith of a mustard seed. So I've been wearing my little mustard seed because even I have immense faith, but sometimes when life becomes weighing you down or burdensome or things like that, you have to just remember that literally, as long as you can hold on to that tiny little speck, literally will get you through anything. It's enough to plant a forest. And again, back to what I was saying about love, whether it's trees or flowers or worms or birds, if you speak with love, it will literally, it's the language that everybody understands. It's energy, it's frequency. So, again, vibes, right? You can walk into a room and you know who's with you or who's against you. Even if you can't see their eyes, even if their mouth and their body language try to trick you into thinking that it's all good in the hood and that you're all buds and family and it's all love, there's going to be an energy or frequency and a vibe that's going to tell you differently. Always trust your instinct. And no matter who you love or who you're friends with or what you're doing in life, know that any moment you can stop and walk away, because you have to love yourself enough to choose you. Like, sorry, not sorry. So the kids that I was talking to about speaking to the birds, and they love it because every day I'm like literally talking to the birds, whether it's whistles or even my own human words, and they talk back. And so now too, like, the little kids are now talking to the birds, and so so the birds are like, she's like, I want to make them dance or make them show up. And so I've explained to them too, hi baby bird, that again, sometimes they'll be really, I always explain to them too, like they're your ancestors. I'm like, oh, that's my grandpa, that's my uncle. And sometimes they will direct me on which way to go or not go. And so I explain to them too, like, oh, I have to go home because the birds are telling me, or they're literally just protecting me from bad situations, especially, again, because if you speak with love, and they do love, they love the world, they're here, and your ancestors stick around, so sometimes in different shapes. But my point being, too, other than your love for God and you having faith the size of a mustard seed, loving yourself is how to beat these demons. Loving yourself is how you beat these dragons. Loving yourself is how you get out of a toxic relationship, how you stand your ground with family or friends that are not really for you. Sometimes that can be tough. And also, like, so DMX, the rapper, right, he had this really great quote, and he's like, to live is to suffer. To find meaning in the suffering is where you find freedom and how you get through the hard times. Because, again, there's always a lesson or a blessing. And I seen this beautiful, normally I versed in the Bible and like what the quote was, but this was just like a YouTube short. And Jesus is talking to James, and he says to him, because again, he wanted to be healed or something, and he's like, but look, I can do so much more for you if I was better, if I was more able-bodied. Or Judas is talking to him at another point, and he's like, I want to prevent all the obstacles, all the stops. We can put a donation thing. And let me get back to James, though. With James, he's like, Sure, but look how many people I've healed. We've done that. We've shown these miracles to people. And yes, it's been powerful. But what if you not being perfect, you still in the struggle chose to follow me, chose to love me? Imagine the impact that that message would have. So sometimes we have to step back and realize, like, it's not like God forgot you. It's not like he gets it off on your suffering or your being in what you think is lack. Because mind you, life and God sees all, knows all. So he will know exactly what you need. And sometimes we get in our fleshly desires and our selfish ways. We're like, I can't do this if I don't have a soda or coffee or a friend to talk to. But again, these things are all just in your ego. They're in your flesh. And sometimes the best way to get to having real substance, God will really sustain you and feed you and get you through the days. And to hear him talk, you have to sometimes be still. I used to tell my children when they were small, how would you ever hear God talk to you if you're always making noise? Sometimes God wants you to be still. He will fight for you. He will pull you through, but you have to trust him. You can't try to control everything and do all things and have everything you're easy breezy, because again, sure, it's beautiful to love him, but again, and people tend to love him when it's easy, but do you love him when it's ugly? Do you love him when you're lacking? Do you still give him glory and be grateful for each day, even when you're in pain or you're lonely or sad or overwhelmed by the thoughts in your head or the experiences that you've had? Because again, sometimes you have to realize that the suffering is the blessing, because one, it makes you stronger. It really does. Like, there's a thing, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And I used to be so resentful towards that statement, because again, that's not true. I felt like at the time, I was like, it just breaks you. And people don't realize, especially with men's mental health, okay? I'm just a girl. Girls have a right to be emotional and have bad days and higher suicide rates, but that's not exactly true. It's like every 2 minutes a man does kill himself. And there's like literally like 144,000 people that die every day, which is quite interesting if you think about the fact that there's a prophecy about 144,000 earth angels or soldiers in God's army. So imagine, that can't be a coincidence, right? Oh, there's a moth. I love it. They look like butterflies, but they're still a spiritual sign. So anyway, what I was saying is, I said before about abortion and them separating the family and Satan trying to get his grasp to divide people and keep this pattern of hate and separation, generationally learned traumas passed on to you. But again, it's not a coincidence that 144,000 people a day are dying, be it by their own hand or by health and things like that. So again, because the devil wants to get rid of the 144,000 of God's soldiers, he doesn't want to be beat. He doesn't want his justice, his punishment, his dirty deeds brought to light. And the best way to be doing that is to be keeping the people sick, keeping the people in hatred, keeping the people weakened because they're working so hard, and they think they've polluted this idea that to work hard and suffering is to be Christ-like. Okay? Now, nobody's telling you that hard work doesn't pay off or that you shouldn't work, because by all means, you should. But again, you have to feed your spirit. You have to know what you're working for. If you are working and toiling hard just for money, that's not, or to keep up with the Joneses, or to, that's not a good idea. Again, nobody should just be barely getting by, but we're also a species, the only species that pays to survive. And there's no, that's not what God wants for the earth. That's not what life and living should be all about. And again, back to what I was saying about speaking with love and beating these demons. It is important because, again, energy and vibrations are important. So, again, I've said before, be mindful of the music you listen to, the conversations you have, the people you have around you, what you decorate your body or your house with. Because, again, those things are things that can put cracks in your armor. If you wear the armor of God, then you will literally be protected. And again, so you have to do some work, because again, only babies can live life without working or having consequences for their actions and things. Hello? But so again, we don't want to be fighting for freedom to be babies. No, of course not. We want to be fighting for justice. And again, too, sometimes the best fight is your silence. Sometimes your best but then there's a time to speak up. Being aware. Don't just jump on the bandwagon because your friends are all voting this way or talking about this or interested in that. Don't be afraid to stand your ground and say, no, this is not okay, just especially with politics or religion. So I seen another thing real quick, and again, I'm getting off the tangent of what I started with, but it's important stuff. So it's not that we don't really have separation of church and state, okay? But the powers that be now have realized that they're taking back the church, taking back the education. So they're trying to taint and corrupt and distract because they know that that's where the real power is. The power is in God. So they don't want you to know that they're infiltrating and separating, and because again they want to control over what is fed into the children again, because that is where the future is. That's why looking back, they all attack the children, they attack the family. And so anyway, sorry, I had to pause the video because I see my little neighborhood friends and they were sick. And I'm telling you, you have to be mindful. Your body, just don't let the sickness wear you down. So sometimes a cool cough helps, but also just remembering that your body and your mind and God is amazing. So you can literally be like, nope, I rebuke this. I walk it off. I'm not going to focus on the sick. I'm going to remember that my body is strong and can heal itself. I'm going to remember that I am strong, and I'm going to choose to focus on something else that is more productive, like getting through it. Like, nope, I'm going to just turn on some music. I'm going to bop it. But he has a high fever, and so again, sometimes your body has to cook it off, right?